Good afternoon, everybody. It's Mike the Bowtie Writer here. Happy Tuesday. So I put a call out on Twitter for what kind of episodes people were interested in seeing, and my friend Lydia rightly pointed out that I have not, in fact, at this point done any episodes at all about characters, which is actually kind of awkward because characters are an important part of any particular story. So Lydia, thank you. That's a fabulous idea. For this next installment in the Nuts and Bolts series, let's go over the framework and methods that I use to try and create my characters and make them seem well-rounded. Let's get to it. Okay, so the first step to creating a character is to choose a race class and then pick up a bunch of six-sided dice. You're going to roll your attributes. 46 drop the lowest. Alright, I'm sorry. That was a terrible joke. I'm not sorry. In all seriousness, though, when it comes time to work on creating characters, I use a method that I learned from a book called Story Engineering. And the way that this method works is that it's a framework for thinking about your characters. Specifically, there's 3 separate layers that you need to develop for this character. And once you spend time developing and showing all 3 of those layers, not only do you naturally have a goal for what your character is trying to achieve in the story, but you've also got the foundations for a character arc that makes your character seem incredibly well-rounded. Let's go over each one of those 3 layers now. Level 1. The first level of characterization is sometimes called the exterior level of characterization. It consists of both what does your character present to the outside world, and also what does your outside world see when they first look upon your character. What are the sort of first impressions that they present? It is sometimes given the really dramatic sounding name of the mask. What's the mask that your character presents to show the outside world? What are they choosing to wear today? I'll be honest, I think that naming is a little over dramatic, especially because there's a much better metaphor out there nowadays. What is exterior characterization? It's easy. What's your character's Instagram feed? Take it away, Cedric. Thinking of external characterization as your character's social media presence is actually very useful, because we all have things that we consider important to us about our identity that we want to present to the external world. We do this through social media by what we try to share. If you're sharing lots of pictures of board games or drawings or dogs or cats or your kids, you're always emphasizing something about your identity, something about your life that is important to you, whether or not it's genuine. That part doesn't matter. When you think of external characterization, think of what people who are flipping through someone's Twitter feed or Instagram would see and what sort of impressions they would get. Don't overthink it. Honestly, it's a paragraph or 2 tops. Let's get to the next level. Level 2. The second level of characterization is what's called the internal level of characterization. Think of it like this. If the outer level is where you wear a mask, the internal level of characterization is where you figure out why did the character pick that particular mask. To see how this works, let's take a look at an example. Suppose K is compact and F is closed in a topological space X. If F is a subset of K, then F is compact? What? So we've got a mask in front of us. That is, someone walking around with a math textbook looking very disheveled. Internal characterization is where you find out why. Have they been up for the last 2 days because they're positively riveted with it? It's so beautiful and so stunning that they can't put it down. They're utterly amazed and riveted. Or is this stuff that the older sister does absolutely flawlessly and daddy says you need to do in order to try and finish your degree, because if you don't finish your degree, you're not going to amount to anything, and you've got so much pressure on yourself that you're just trying to get it and you can't get it, so you're pissed off and you're mad and you're frustrated and you're just terrified. See how even with the same mask, a different internal level of characterization can give us a completely different spin on one character? That's what you're trying to do with this step, is trying to figure out that why. When it's practically time for me to sit down and do some interior characterization, I simply list some of the important aspects that I've shown on the exterior level, and I answer the question why. 1 or 2 sentences each, maybe a paragraph. It doesn't have to be a lot. Level 3. So at this point in time, you should have for your important character both the external characterization and the internal characterization of them. Is that all we need? Not quite. There's a little bit more that we need to go over. Namely, we need to go over what happens when this character is under stress. The second level of characterization answered the question why. A classic example of this is actually A Christmas Carol, where you get to learn why Scrooge made the decisions that he did and why Scrooge became such, well, a Scrooge. Things get really interesting though when that character starts being under stress. We know what they value, why they've made the choices they've made, and what's important to those characters. But when they're under stress, we start getting to see what happens to those values and ideas when things are not ideal, when things are challenging for them. For example, famously, Scrooge at the last minute, once he realizes everything that's going on and the consequences of his actions, once he's faced with that, he makes a choice. He decides he's going to change, and he decides he's going to be more generous. He's not going to be miserly and greedy anymore. And that's a huge change for that character. This third level of characterization is where real magic happens, because you've now shown us what values this character has, what's important to them, what have they chosen. And yet you can also now decide when the stakes are high and when these values are in direct conflict with the environment, what wins? You might have noticed in all of my examples, I tend to be describing pivotal moments and character arcs. And that's the thing. That's what this third level of characterization actually gives you. It lays the foundation for a character arc for your character. Ideally, when you're seeing that decision at the very end about what's stressful for the character, that's at your climax of the character arc. The purpose of all three of these levels of characterization is to try and show a well-rounded character. That's why I like thinking about it this way, because it lets me get beyond just something like a hair color and eye color, and I start trying to break down why the character is the way they are and what's important to them, and I get to see how that changes under stress. It's a dynamic picture of a character, and I hope that it's a useful way for you to approach your own characters. Alright, that's it. That's all I have for this week. I hope this conversation on characterization is useful to you. I know for me, when I first heard about this framework, it just blew my mind. I'd tried everything before then. I'd tried like 10, 15, 20-page questionnaires about things about the character. I tried pre-writing what their bedroom was like. I was even looking at their horoscope signs to try and give me some guidance, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't helpful. This is very practical. It's also very short. You can knock out an idea of what your character is like in less than an hour or two, and for me, at least, I get something so much more vivid as a result. I first read about this framework in a book called Story Engineering by Brooks. I'm going to put a link down below in the description for you to take a look at it. It's a wonderful and useful craft book. If you have any questions or feedback, let me know down in the comments. This is a fascinating topic for me. I could talk about it for hours, so feel free to hit me up either down in the comments or look me up on Twitter. I'm at BowtieWriter. As always, if you liked what you saw, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. That does help me out. It gets my videos in front of new people. I do appreciate it. Otherwise, that's it for this week. That's all I have. I'm Mike the Bowtie Writer. I will see you all next time.